Lotus Field is a land card from Core Set 2020 that instantly drew attention upon its preview in June 2019. It's a hexproof land, and Lotus Field enters the battlefield tapped. When Lotus Field enters the battlefield, you're forced to sacrifice 2 lands, but you can tap it to add 3 mana of any one color. The card's design is meant to evoke memories of Black Lotus, the most iconic and game-defining card in Magic. Its name and triple mana generation made it a spiritual successor of sorts, but it had to of course be tempered by modern design philosophy. Players commented on its resemblance to Lotus Veil, with one commenting, "This is surprisingly close to a strictly better Lotus Veil. The hexproof part is huge." Players were still polarized. Some thought its potential for combo strategies were huge, and others did not want more combo decks. Others criticized the steep cost of sacrificing lands, calling it essentially unplayable in Standard. However, everyone absolutely loved the art by John Avon. To this day, this is still one of my personal favorite pieces of art in Magic. In Standard, Lotus Field saw very limited competitive success. Decks really struggled to overcome its immediate tempo loss from the sacrifice trigger and also when it entered tapped. However, some creative brewers experimented with cards like a Boreal Grazer and Growth Spiral to mitigate its downside, but no deck really emerged that was relevant. The card's true potential lay in non-rotating formats, particularly Pioneer. When Pioneer was announced in October 2019, a few months after Lotus Field, players quickly realized the format's card pool had all the tools to unlock Lotus Field's potential, while not having to compete with the most powerful cards in Modern. The key enablers for the deck are Thespian Stage, a land that lets you copy another target land for 2 mana. If you choose Lotus Field, it will not require you to sacrifice the lands again, letting you double your mana output. Hidden Strings. This 2 mana spell allows you to choose 2 permanents to untap. When used on 2 Lotus Field, Hidden Strings generates a net gain of +4 mana, essentially spending 2 to cast it, but gaining 6 by untapping the fields. This interaction is the backbone of the deck, often kickstarting combo turns. Pour Over the Pages is another key piece of the combo. For 5 mana, it draws 3 cards, untaps 2 permanents, and requires the player to discard 1 card. When the untapped permanent are Lotus Fields, this spell becomes a net +1 mana generator. You essentially spend 5 to gain 6. Additionally, it really helps you dig deep into your deck to find more combo pieces, enabling the deck to chain together spells. Another piece of the mana generating engine is Vizier of Tumbling Sands, a creature you can cycle. Cycling it for 2 mana lets you untap a permanent which you can choose to be Lotus Field, effectively generating +1 mana while drawing a card. Last but not least, Sylvan Scrying is essentially a tutor for non-basic lands, allowing consistent access to Lotus Field and Thespian Stage. Now there's a lot of ways that Lotus Field actually wins. The Lotus Field combo usually aims to make a vast amount of mana and convert that advantage into some type of game-ending play. One of the most iconic win conditions was maybe Approach of the Second Sun, a spell that allows the deck to win outright if cast twice in the same game. The strategy involved casting first Approach of the Second Sun, quickly cycling through the deck with card draw and scry effects, and using the surplus mana to recast it. A popular way to ensure you got to this point was to cast an Emergent Ultimatum, which lets you select 3 cards in your library. Your opponent gets to select one of them to shuffle back into your library, and the rest resolve for free. So you can select powerful spells like Omniscience, Behold the Beyond, and a Pour Over the Pages, for example. Often the spells you wanted to end the game, like Approach of the Second Sun, would be actually found in your sideboard and picked up by casting, for example, Fae of Wishes. As Lotus Field solidified its position in Pioneer, the metagame has adapted to it. Cards like Damping Sphere and Alpine Moon are often in sideboards to counter these type of strategies.
And this is a bit of an all-in from Chen, saying that Really hope you don't have a Damping Sphere. You only run 2 copies and you're 2 lands away from a Buzz Crusher still.
Bad news. There's the Damping Sphere. It's on the battlefield already. Damping Sphere, a must deal with artifact here for Chen, but he's down to what, a colorless mana?
In late 2021, Lotus Field got stronger when Lear, Disciple of Drown, was added in Innistrad Midnight Hunt. This 5-mana legendary creature ensures spells can't be countered and gives all your instants and sorceries in the graveyard flashback. All those hidden strings and Pour Over the Pages are suddenly back for almost infinite mana. In Adventures of the Forgotten Realms, we got Lair of the Hydra, which is an XX green land, where you can essentially pump all your mana as an alternative win condition. When you play the land, it comes down with Summoning Sickness, but you can actually copy Lair of the Hydra with Thespian Stage and you essentially get haste on it. I learned this fact from Airball MTG. There was a video for a bunch of tricks for Lotus Field I'm gonna link below. Opponents also started incorporating new tools from expansions such as Kamigawa, where they found Boseiju Who Endures in 2022, which can essentially remove Thespian Stage as well before the hexproof. But ironically, Boseiju Who Endures also made Lotus Field combo stronger because it was a way to remove Damping Sphere.
The best draw for Chen here would probably be Boseiju.
Right?
That would be the way that he can answer this Damping Sphere. Sylvan Scrying would be good as well, as it can go get Boseiju. But without those, he's stuck with very little mana, and Seth is going to start landing Haymakers. Shieldred into Vein Ripper, big issue.
Recent sets like Bloomburrow and Foundations have introduced new tools that further shapes the Lotus Field decks. The addition of Expedition Map allowed players to replace Sylvan Scrying, opening up the potential to play other colors than green. The addition of Artist's Talent provided a ton of card draw and makes creating surplus mana also easier. When you level up Artist's Talent, Hidden Strings is then a net gain of +5 mana, and Pour Over the Pages is a net gain of +2. Cycling the Vizier, of course, remains the same. This has led to a shift in the deck's core identity a little bit. The most recent meta iteration of Lotus Field combo, which I'm playing, often runs Izzet colors, winning most often through playing Wish to access Thassa's Oracle from the sideboard, having only about 2 cards in the library left, creating a win. With this you can also run Niv Mizzet Parun, that whenever a player casts an instant or sorcery spell, you draw a card. And whenever you draw a card, it also deals 1 damage to any target. But with Artist's Talent level 3, it instead deals 3 damage. I think this really shows that the Lotus Field combo is adapting to a changing metagame and in some ways is getting stronger. In an article published in January 2023, Hall of Famer Paulo Vitor Damodarosa ranks Lotus Field combo as the most challenging deck to pilot in Pioneer. He says the worst deck to play in a tournament with no matches of practice is Lotus Field. It's a combo deck that operates in ways we're not used to, and you need to learn a bunch of specific things about it. How to float mana, which keeps a right, the correct sequences, ultimatum piles, sideboard strategy, etc. And if you don't know what you're doing, you're never going to win a game. He discusses how, in a deck like Izzet Phoenix, when mastered, it makes you a better Magic player overall. Learning Izzet Phoenix improves general gameplay fundamentals, but in contrast he argues that mastering Lotus Field combo mostly makes you a better Lotus Field combo player, that the skills you develop when playing these decks are quite specialized and they don't necessarily transfer as broadly to other decks. In this way you could think that the deck is difficult to play, but it's also a bit in its own world. Yes, it demands technical expertise, but also just a willingness to commit to its unique playstyle, and an acceptance to the reactions you sometimes will get when you play it.
I'll draw 3. I will discard 1 and I'll untap up to 2 lands.
Yep.
And Carl, would you like a coffee?
It says Yamin on it too!
It says Yamin on it.
You may carry on. I've got stuff to do now.
Yeah, you were starting to get bored. I'm a very sensible man.
You may be wondering why I'm even spending all this time on difficulty, and PVDDR also discusses this point. The first reason is knowing how much you practice to be able to play it at a good level. However, the bigger reason I'm discussing this is the validity of public results. The easier a deck is to play, the more reliable the public data is for it, and this will soon become relevant. Lotus Field very recently was introduced to Magic the Gathering Arena's Pioneer format in late December 2024 with Pioneer Masters. Many players eagerly tried out the Lotus Field combo for the first time, but the deck's complexity proved to often be a significant barrier, and the win rate percentage of the deck is really low on Untapped. For less experienced players, this often resulted in failed combo attempts that dragged out games for minutes at a time only to end in failure. And it didn't really help that good pilots also had to understand how to execute the combo on Arena's user interface for the first time, also causing some problems with auto-tapper, and also even some 5-minute round timeouts.
Well, I strongly suspect we win here. But now we just have to execute on the clock. Alright, now is the point where I think I need to turn off auto-tap, because this has screwed me several times. You've learned not to trust auto-tap? Yeah. There was one game the other day where I had one red floating in an untapped Lotus Field and hidden strings in hand, and I leveled up my artist talent and it tapped the Lotus Field for red. So afterwards I had one red floating instead of the blue I needed to cast hidden strings.
This created a bit of an interesting dynamic on the arena ladder. Some opponents recognized that the steep learning curve of Lotus Field meant that they should not even concede when the combo begins, because many Lotus players would misplay or even fail to execute the win condition, leaving them an opportunity to win. This meant that matches against inexperienced Lotus Field players often became drawn-out affairs where you sit through a 5-minute combo attempt where you could still have a chance to win. However, I do think this just made the deck seem a lot weaker than it actually is, and players who dedicate themselves to it will actually be rewarded by a really powerful tier 1 deck. To me, Lotus Field stands out as one of Magic's more recent iconic cards. While it relies somewhat on nostalgia, it strikes a good balance between innovation and power. It may unite and divide some players, but it undeniably sparks discussion. Love it or hate it, you have to admit, it's a beautiful card. Thanks for watching. If you made it to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel if you want more content like this in the future. I've got like 20 subs making this video, so I'd love to hit like, I don't know, 50. Yeah, anyways, have a good one. Take care.